So the ontological argument, this was founded by a monk called Anselm in the 11th century. He never intended it to be an argument to prove the existence of God, rather a prayer in response to Psalm 14, which says the fool in his heart says there is no God. Now, this left Anselm rather perplexed, because he felt, how could anybody, if they understand the notion of God, how could anyone reject him? And he's right, because if you think about it, God is perfect, and perfect things must exist. Whoa, slow down, a little bit of an inductive leap. Perfect things must exist simply because if they didn't, they would fall short of being perfect. Let's say if we were to take a Mars bar that exists in both mind and reality is clearly more perfect than a Mars bar that is limited to one's mind only. And we can apply this to all kinds of different things, even things that are rather unsavoury. They are still more perfect in their own right if they were to exist in reality as well as the mind. It's just all a matter of perspective. Anyway, Anselm responded to Psalm 14, the fool in his heart, as a saying. This became known as Prodilogian too. He said, God is the greatest thing conceivable. If somebody can think of better, then you yourself are not thinking of God. God is the greatest thing, or the most perfect thing conceivable. Perfect things must exist in both mind and reality. God is perfect, therefore God exists. To which I suppose we can have a very obvious counter, and it was absolutely put forward by an Italian monk, a contemporary of Anselm's in the 11th century, called Gaunilo, who said, well, Anselm, I can imagine a perfect island. It doesn't mean it exists. Now, Anselm was good friends with Gaunilo. Gaunilo was playing the fool. Gaunilo was, in a sense, playing the springboard for Anselm's Prodilogian 3. He was playing the fool. He knew it was a blunt instrument. To which Anselm responded, well, unlike your island, my God's existence is necessary. An island relies on matter, ultimately the sand, the water, to form an island. God's existence is necessary. We've been into all of that, he's perfect, therefore must exist in mind and reality, blah blah blah. So we know that God exists, his existence is necessary. In contrast, the island's existence is contingent. It relies upon other things for its existence. Contingent things are not as perfect, obviously, as necessary things. By pure definition, they rely on other things for their existence. They can't cease to be perfect. Besides, I could always add another palm tree, another lagoon to my island. Whereas with God, he has already achieved something called maximal greatness. A scholar called Alvin Plantinga, a 20th century philosopher, chipped in with that little nugget, by the way. This became known as what we call Prodilogian 3, that contingent things are subordinate or inferior, use whatever word you like, to necessary things. We cannot therefore argue absolutely anything into existence, unicorns, or other mythological kind of creatures. We can't just apply some kind of logic to them and conclude that they exist because of the pure fact that they are contingent. It wasn't until the 17th century when one amazing French philosopher, arguably the best that French philosopher ever, a man called René Descartes, actually changed what was once a prayer into a rather clever argument, still keeping the essence of the argument, an a priori argument, which incidentally is like armchair philosophy. It relies upon logic. By that I mean it's not relying on the observable universe. We could prove, for example, God's existence through the vehicle that is the ontological argument from the comfort of our living room or kitchen. Descartes used a triangle to prove the existence of God. He says a triangle has 3 sides. That's all well and good. The predicate of a triangle are the 3 sides. It is a necessary quality of a triangle. Okay? In the same way that a necessary predicate of God is perfection, we've done that, but a necessary predicate of perfection is existence. Of course, perfection implies things must exist in mind and reality. Bottom line, however, they must exist. Which means that just like the triangle in 3 sides, there is an intrinsic link, an inseparable link. You cannot have the triangle without the 3 sides. It just doesn't work. In the very same way, you cannot have perfection without existence. Therefore, God's existence is necessary. It is what we call an analytic statement. It is true by definition. Another statement of a similar ilk is all bachelors are unmarried men. You can't disagree with that. The definition of the subject is within the sentence. This is an analytic statement, according to Descartes. See if you follow. God is perfect, therefore exists. God is perfect. Okay. Little bit of a criticism there, in the sense that if we reject that premise, the entire argument falls down. We'll come back to that one. But certainly, God is perfect, therefore exists, is what Descartes regarded as an analytic statement. He has therefore made the existence of God necessary. Now, a Prussian philosopher, again one of the best, the heavyweights really involved in this argument, 18th century Prussian philosopher by the name of Immanuel Kant, believed in God, just didn't believe that you could prove his existence. He's too other, he's too distinct, not Kant by the way, God. And so obviously picked up the mantle, disagreed with Descartes, weren't contemporaries, but nevertheless had a good old dig. He said, Descartes, existential statements, they're not analytic. How can it be true that something exists without empirically verifying it? You just can't do it. So synthetic statements, or existential statements I should say, are not analytic. They are synthetic. They require empirical investigation. All swans are white. Cool, it's false of course, but we can only really find that out via investigation. It makes existential claims, and any statement that makes existential claims are sadly synthetic. Descartes perhaps falls short. His argument might be pretty, but ultimately fails perhaps. It's all a matter of perspective. Kant's second argument is actually existence isn't even a predicate. You know, you're playing around with words here, Descartes. You know, perfect. In order for something to be perfect, it must exist. Existence is a necessary predicate, therefore, of existence. It's not right. Existence tells us nothing of the subject. Existence tells us nothing. For example, we can describe an individual as having hair, wearing a black top. These are all predicates, unshaven. These predicates, they tell us something of the subject. They are descriptive. Existence doesn't cut the mustard. And so Kant was rather cutting, as you can see in his dissection of René Descartes. This is the very essence of the ontological argument, and is by no means meant to be a comprehensive insight, but gives you the very essence of what you need to know when we're in lesson